here the draft work program for health. Just briefly to give you a glimpse what the current program for health will look like. These will be officially published in December. So this is a draft that has been shared confidentiality with me. I am not allowed to publish this on the website, but I'm allowed to use it like here, private between people as a working tool. There may be differences in the smaller text or in the numbers of euros distributed per call, but 90% of the text is fixed now. So you can really use it as a guide if you like. There are similar programs on food and environment and agriculture and IST, communication technologies. So I shared the copies with Paul, and he can share it with you by email.
Okay.
But please don't publish them today on your website. Just wait a few weeks. In the course of November, they will be released as formal documents, and then you're able to publish them. But you can share them by email.
Thank you.
So the work programs, what is new now, is also they are published every 2 years on a rolling basis. So now we get the program for 2014 and 2015. And in 2014, the next 2 years will be prepared. And so every time you have at least 1 year, if not 2 years in advance, that you know which calls will come out. These are all focused on health, demographic change, thinking of aging, and well-being, thinking of quality of life, instead of just therapy and diagnostics. This is a bit small, so I'll try to. I'll just sit so you can better see. So one of the goals is really about personalizing health and care, healthcare, care for people linked to aging and disease, and understanding the issues and the challenges. What are the risk factors and pathways to change something? What are the challenges at understanding systems? Systems meaning, for example, not just looking as a cardiovascular expert at the heart only, but if you have cardiovascular problems, it may be a hormonal problem, it may be a problem in your nutrition, in your diet, in neuropeptide release from the brain. So the whole organism, in this case a patient, needs to be addressed in its context. And then you can have a more meaningful input on what is really the cause of your cardiovascular disease. Maybe it's the wrong diet, wrong living conditions, lack of sport. Maybe it's a combination of a certain diet with neuropeptides and hormones. Who knows? There are many, many different challenges to be investigated. And this is where integrating all these disciplines in one approach. And that should give some output influence of how do we screen and how do we treat and where do we treat. Do we treat the context, the patients, or the patient itself? And that's quite a big issue in healthcare at the moment. Now, sorry? Yeah, these are just the titles of the calls. So the text of the calls are in each of these pages. So we can take one, for example here, infectious epidemics and foodborne outbreaks of pathogens. That's microbes in your food. So let's have a look at page 11. And, I haven't seen all these myself yet, so you see there's a lot of text in this call. Now looking at the text here, I haven't read this one yet, so it's both human and animal health that are facing infections, linked to the spread of infection through food. There's a migration cross-border approach, of course, there's a transition approach between animals and humans. And of course, in the environment, the use of antibiotics has created, in the food chain for animal breeding, has created a lot of drug resistance of microbes that end up in the environment. And in the end, they end up in our drinking water and in our food. And so we see when the antibiotics clearly just limiting antibiotics is not enough, and clearly so just treating human patients is not enough either. You have to consider the source of the problem, which is the food industry and the animal breeding. One part of the project will be pathogen monitoring, the rapid identification and geographical mapping. Another one will be harmonizing standards for sampling and data collections. You see already here there are multiple disciplines working together in the same project. And the expected impact what we should be aiming for at the end of the project is that the containment of the epidemics, consequent improved resource efficiency, plus the reduction of the economic impact of outbreaks of infections. Obviously, this is not just for patients, but also in the animal breeding. The big infection can cause harm. And eventually reinforcing food chain sustainability and enhancement of food security. There's a link to have here the response within 48 hours of an outbreak. Now this is not so easy. To have a research response within 48 hours, you need to be super organized. So there's a logistical element in this as well. To see how do you get the collection of the samples as quickly to the clinical center or the laboratory to evolve the decision-making body and to make a response in 48 hours. That's very, very ambitious. And you probably see that the Centers for Disease Control should be involved as well, because they monitor epidemics and the surveillance, just like WHO does that for human infections. So you get a glimpse of the complexity of the project, and not one university will be able to address this. It clearly calls for an integrated consortium to work with. And if you happen to have a test or a way to identify certain microbes very quickly, much quicker than, or cheaper than others, you may offer that expertise to such a consortium, and that may be to mutual benefit. Okay, any questions?
So we find the European partner interested in that example you gave through the portal.
Yes, and through the support office with the projects that I presented yesterday, and I don't know whether there's something to write here, but I can leave an extra slide with the links. I'll attach it tonight to the presentation and leave it with you. There are a number of projects like Fit for Health that help you to find partners freely if you fill in a little form of 1 page, half a page, to demonstrate where you're located, what your expertise level is, what you can do and offer, and what you're looking for in a partnership. And this can then be distributed through our networks in Europe for free. We bring you into contact with potential partners. Secondly, and that is another link I will give, there are 2 or 3 databases where you can actually search for existing projects that are being funded in these fields already. And you can identify, oh, this is a coordinator who is having a project in this field. Maybe they have contacts in other partners. Maybe they want to invite me for a next project. At least they have experience in the field, they know how to manage a good project, and they can act as a lead partner. So the third tip will be to look for conferences, and not only in your own discipline, but conferences addressing these issues, and look for industry partners who are presenting there. Because they're recognized, they're interested in the issue, and they might need an academic partner like you to work with them to be able to apply. Because again, not a university can do this alone, but a company can also do this with need. So it's really about finding a way. Given the time, I'll go back to the presentation now, but if anybody has questions on specific things they would like to discuss this afternoon, I'll be here. I can stay there longer. Okay. So if you have an ID and you have identified a call, where you say, okay, maybe my expertise can be form one piece of the puzzle there. How do I find the other partners, and then how do we agree on a successful proposal? It's useful, and I will go very quickly through a number of slides that give you a guideline how an evaluator looks at a proposal. What do they judge as a success factor? And then at the end, I will discuss a little bit about intellectual property, because if you work with other partners in academia and with industry, you may need to negotiate terms on how do you collaborate together. And finally, I'll give one or two examples of projects that were successful, so you can learn from the examples there. And in the end, developing winning proposals and all that, I'll keep an eye on the sorry, hold on a second. Still working. Still working, we'll see. Getting support for winning proposals, you really need to think beyond the science and the technology itself. One of the elements is the management support you get from the Research Management Support Office to focus on the management of the project and on the finances. In the same way, from the business development or technology transfer office on your university and from your industry partners in the consortium, you should learn from each other on, okay, at the exploitation side, creating impact, how do they do that? What are the requirements of the industry partners from you? If you develop a test, can they actually use that test in their setting? If you develop materials for a new product or a new drug, or if you develop a new plant that eventually could become a crop, do they have the right characteristics? Do they match the needs of the next person to the further development or the end user? So those kind of discussions are a lot of preparation before you even start writing your proposal work plan. My experience is that most scientists go too quickly over that. And they immediately start writing a proposal as what they have in their mind. And then they start talking to a partner who has a completely different view of what needs to be done, and you have to start over again. So to save a lot of time and avoid this kind of misconceptions, the next couple of slides give you a guideline on methodology. How do you do this in a methodological, systematic way? What issues should you address first, and what next, and what are the last things that you can do before submitting? So really your process. Now here are some of the support projects that I mentioned before, and I will give the links to you later. It all starts with communicating about what you want to do. And how do you communicate? Well, you don't write a scientific abstract, but you write an executive summary of your proposal. And that's not a small thing to do. I mentioned this already 2 years ago when I was here, so some of you, this might not be new. But in an executive summary of the proposal, you address first the problem you want to address. You do not start with, I have this technology, I have this idea. No, you start with, what is the problem you want to address? Is it the whole environmental pollution of Jamaica? Or is it something very specific that links to environmental pollution? Or any place in the world, and you just use the resource in Jamaica as a pipe, as an example. But anybody else can use the results. And then, what are the objectives, the limits, the scope of your project? If you want to attack the environmental pollution in Jamaica, that may be a 20-year project, and you may need enormous deep pockets. So how do you limit your project if you ask for 1 or 2 million euro? What is the scope? Where do you start? How far can you go? And if you have that very clear in mind, then you can write a work plan with just a few bullets. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And you indicate very clearly what you can do and what your partners will do. So it's clear that you have a collaboration and sharing interest and capacity. And don't forget in the last paragraph to summarize how can the results be used. As I said, environmental pollution here in Jamaica as a test case to find what is a remedy, and that remedy or that process, that system can be transformed into a more general approach for Europe, or you can partner this and transfer it to Spain or to Poland, where they're sitting on a separate problem. So address how your project will be used afterwards. How do you create impact? And then you create your consortium and look for complementary partners. Because as I said, nobody can do this alone, so the pieces of the puzzle are all different, but they need to fit together. If you take the example of building a house, if you build a house, you need a mason, you need somebody making the foundations and the groundwork, you need somebody who makes the windows and all the woodwork, somebody who does the interior design, somebody who does the roof. So you need to have this complementary capacity and expertise, all the complementary materials, put them in a logical work plan. It's the same thing. That's classical project management. And only after you've done that, then you can think about the budget. Because each partner will have a different budget. It's not if you ask $1 million that everybody will get their an equal share. Equally, if you build a house, you will not pay 1/10 of the price of the house to the mason if it's a wooden house. So according to the amount of work they do, and according to the value you bring into the project, they're paid. And then you think about impact. Don't forget that the impact, exploitation, and the dissemination about your results to the stakeholders is a lot of work. Don't underestimate that, because that will be the critical success to link your project to the next, and be invited for next projects because you did that first project. Like the RIMI for AC, we've done in Africa, because I've been involved with a very similar project in South Africa in the past. And now the idea was, okay, we use that experience, we farm it out to other parts of Africa, and in South Africa they introduced me to you guys in the Caribbean. They said, well, what we can do in Africa, we can also export to Caribbean and learn from in a completely different environment how this can be implemented here. And the experience we have now, hopefully we can import into the next project in the future. So that's how you link and you create impact by expanding its scope over time. Don't do everything in one project. Build it up. And on the roadmap, of course, as I said, the deadlines will be in March, April. That means that you have your work plan and your consortium ready by February, March. That means that you have your consortium complete with all the partners by the end of this year. That means you need to start searching for partners now. It takes that much of time. And you need to plan it as a roadmap. What needs to be completed by when? Again there, I keep on repeating, communicating about what you want to achieve is really crucial. This example was about miscommunication about what they wanted to do exactly. Everybody agreed on we want to have a new generation airplane. They actually got the money with the consortium. They start doing their own little bit. One built the wing, the other one built the motor, the third one built the construction. And they had not really agreed how the parts would fit together at the end of the project. So after a year, they came back for the first project management board meeting, and they discovered that they had been doing different things with different objectives for different markets, for different users. So they lost a full year, a lot of money and time, and they had to redesign some of the parts. And this happens in many, many, many projects. So be specific enough. If you have something, explain and ask questions to your partners. Is this the quality you need? Are these the characteristics that you need to do your part in the project? And continuously communicate about it. And the thing about the reporting. Is this the quality level of detail we need in the reporting back to the funding agency? Same principle. And you save enormous amount of time by paying attention to this. So it's not the amount of communication, but it's the quality of the communication that counts. And then even you have developed your construction, your structure, only then you start writing your proposal together, and you farm out different tasks. You have one work package leader who builds the wing, so he writes the work package about building wings. The other work package leader builds the motors, so they are the experts on writing the work package on motors. And then the coordinator puts everything together in a coherent structure. So the coordinator is almost like a conductor of an orchestra. They put everything together as a coherent, integrated proposal. But most of the writing can be farmed out to the individual partners, and the coordinator needs to rely on you to write your part. So be proactively helping your coordinator to achieve that. To start from an idea into a structured proposal with a clear logical structure of work packages, it really helps to go through these questions. And you can enter and insert your additional questions as appropriate. But it's an example of how you guide your questions, guiding the activities into work packages 1 to 6 in this example. And you structure your proposal accordingly. And that makes it much more easy to read for an evaluator. Because an evaluator usually has 50 or 60 proposals on his table electronically. They have to read this at night. They have to read it in the weekends after a big party with their family. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they want a nicely structured, well-written, simple proposal. Simple in the way that they can easily navigate what information is where. The figures, charts, tables, a clear index, and this kind of logical thinking helps them to read the information. They become much more excited if they find the information quickly. Also, if you explain that you're working on a big problem, then you have, in the middle part, the capacity to do this, because you have all the right partners on board. And in the end, who can benefit? And that you really create something meaningful in impact, and not just something small in one corner of Kingston, but something that is meaningful for a lot of people. This leveraging effect, as I said this morning. If you can demonstrate that to an evaluator, they become excited about it, and they will give you much higher scores. So be enthusiastic about your project, be realistic, but also don't forget that the evaluator needs to be convinced. So I hope that helps as a tool. And now the structure of most of the European projects sort of follows these chapters, and they follow the same logic. What is your scientific approach? The middle part, what is your management structure and your budget? And the last part, how do you exploit your results and how do you talk about it, the dissemination? And each of these 3 chapters, you get their own score. So you can be very good in the scientific methodology and fail on the budget, or fail on the intellectual property and the exploitation part. And this happens all the time. I'm evaluated for the European Commission since 17 years, and most of the proposals that fail, they're very weak in impact. Quite often they're good in science, wonderful, bright ideas about the technology, but they don't make that translation to impact, to use. And this is where Horizon 2020 will place even much more attention to than in the past. So this is the reason why I spend so much time on talking about impact. You're the scientist, actually, you know your science. But the impact part may be new to you. Even within a work package, and you can be a work package leader from Jamaica, well, the coordinator, the lead partner could be in Europe. You follow the same logic. What is the objective you want to achieve in the work package? Like you build a motor, describe the characteristics of the motor, and then you describe the plan, the work plan, step 1, step 2, step 3, like with some parts, you put the turbine there with some new fans, and you put the engine connected to the fans, and then you test whether the motor has sufficient power or capacity to work. So that is the work plan. And then at the end, you have a list of deliverables. And deliverables are first a report of the technical characteristics of the motor itself, maybe a manual on how to repair the motor, and maybe a training course on how to build motors in the future. Those are deliverables. And the deliverables actually are done following the time planning. This is a Gantt chart, just one example, but we have a logical time planning from first work package 1, then work package 2 and 3. And it's logical, if you build a house, you start with the foundations. You don't start with the roof. Mostly. So it's not rocket science. And as scientists, you're very well trained and intelligent enough to design something like this. But the evaluator will look at this, and they will spot any errors. They will see, oh, that's not logical. They could have done 3 or 4 work packages in parallel because these are different parts. Or they forgot to do the testing, and they assemble everything, and they test only at the very end. If something goes wrong, what happens? So better test halfway as well. If that test is positive, you can proceed in the next part. So an evaluator will read it with those questions in mind. So think about that. What kind of test, what kind of stage do you take decisions to proceed in the rest of the project? And that determines your budget. If you have plenty of time, you can spread out the budget over 3-4 years. If you're very pressed, you may have to hire new staff, extra staff, to work with more money in a shorter term, because otherwise the rest of the project will be delayed. So time planning and budgets are linked with each other. And now you describe your partnership and who does what, and how complementary they are, and also how you avoid risk or manage risk. Because in science and innovation, there's always new things coming up. There are always risks that you have not foreseen. And it's good to have a contingency plan, a risk management strategy. So how do you react if you build this motor and then all of a sudden the capacity is much, much less and you can't figure out why? You start all over, or the whole project is wasted. Or do you have an alternative motor as spare part or as plan B? Think of that and explain it to the evaluator so that you demonstrate that you know where the risky areas are and that you have a means to get out. Because what they really want to avoid is investing in a project that if something goes wrong, everything is wasted. That is the last they want to see. And they understand there will be risks, but if you explain how you navigate around it, that's fine. That's an important one. And that brings me to the management part. Project with the consortium with more than 2 or 3 partners, you have to make decisions together. That means you need, the other thing there is a project management board where each of the partners sit in as a representative and they have a vote. And they discuss these problems, they discuss the risks, they discuss the way how they navigate, and they discuss budget issues, quality issues, and they do that together. So describe how you make decisions. With a majority vote or not? Or is there a coordinator who makes certain decisions alone and other decisions together? What happens if a partner doesn't perform and they walk and leave the consortium? How do you decide on the budget then? Those kind of texts should be in a proposal described because they determine the success of the project. And as an investor, the funding agency wants to know what happens if something goes wrong. Do they lose the money and they have no results? Not really. They're not charities. So think what you as an investor would do and think to answer those questions up front. And that helps the evaluator to be more relaxed about it. Yeah, these are guys that are serious. And then a little advice there, the European Commission talks to the coordinator, so you don't call up the European Commission directly. Build up a good relationship with your coordinator, because they will need to defend your issue to the Commission, to the funding agency. And if they hate you, you may end up with budget cuts that you cannot control. So it's a human issue. Build a good relationship with the coordinator. help them as much as they can, so that they can defend your rights. And then the round box is the project advisory board or a steering advisory committee, whatever name you want to call it. And that's very useful in many projects where you can invite people from government, from procurement agency, from regulatory agency, from big industries, or from users, farmer associations, patient associations, NGOs, the local city council, the mayor, if you're working on a community problem. And invite them into an advisory function. You pay for their travel, and you pay for the catering of the meeting. You don't pay their salary, but you tap their brain, and you get advice to connect your project to the outcome, to the impact, to the users. To connect your project with other projects that are addressing similar problems around you. For example, if you work on an environmental pollution problem in a city, and there's another project from the City Council on mobility and transport, and they are running a big highway and with polluting traffic through your area, you need to talk. Yeah? They influence each other. So advisory committees are quite useful. And that helps with the success of the project. And if you explain why you invite these people, it helps the evaluator to see how you increase the impact. So you're not working on isolation. And then of course the budget, I'll skip this a bit, but if you do this carefully in this methodology, you have all the answers and the elements to design the budget instead of just guessing, like here. And don't forget this one. Identifying risk and work on the processes. What do you want to do, how, who, and when, and what if. Just for your background, but just to really to realize that you get in many of the European projects, if not all, after you sign a contract, you get advance money. That's part of the project budget you get, and you can use that advance money from your account to make expenses. It will not cover all the expenses. All the funding agencies, they give the final payment only after they accepted your final report. It's always at the end. You still need to make some expenses at the end of the project, report on them, and only when the final report is accepted, you get the final little tranche of money. So that means you have a hole in your account, a negative balance. So just realize that and discuss with the Research Management Office and the Finance Department of the university how to address that issue. And there are many ways of how to manage this, but think about it and plan for it so that it doesn't become a disaster at the end. There's secondly, what we encountered in the Evening for AC project as well, is that you get the advance money, but are you ready to use it? In the Evening for AC, many of the African universities, for example, had to hire staff to then do their activities. It took them almost a year to get the people in place. During the year, they had not the staff to be paid. So the money was there, but you could not claim it. And then, at the end of the project, running out of time, and all scrambling for finalizing the last activities. So this is something that happens in many projects as well. If you plan it carefully at the kickoff meeting together with the coordinator, you can sort of prepare the activities in the first year already, and everybody really starts right from day one. And that helps a lot. The third tip, well, that's a logical one. Many people forget to prepare the reporting. They all start working, and then one day before deadline of the report, oh, I need to write this report. That's much more work than I thought. Yes, it's much more work than you thought. So prepare time for the reporting. Prepare all the data that you need during the project lifetime. Assemble them in folders and copies in your office so that you're ready when you need to prepare the report. That way you get your money earlier. It's in your interest. Fortunately, there is also free help. The Finance Help Desk project has a lot of frequent asked questions, and they can address a lot of the issues that you might have about your financing. I skipped this already. Reporting means that you demonstrate what you've done. That means you have to show what you've done and measure what you've done. And that's quite often that is something that you need to think about already when you write your proposal. How do you measure success? How do you measure your output? The number of publications is easy, but the rest, because there's far more coming out of your project than just publications, I know. So, how much do you promise to deliver in terms of students trained, in terms of materials and tools developed, in terms of workshops and conferences given? Do you give 2 workshops or 10? Has a big impact on the budget. Do you have the capacity to deliver 10 workshops? And if you want to test and screen materials for medical purposes and drugs, can you screen 100 compounds in your laboratory with your test? Or do you need a different test to screen 1,000 to find one active compound? So evaluators will look at that as well. Is it reasonable what you promise to deliver? Is it sufficiently valuable? So don't under-promise, but don't over-promise, because then you may end up with trouble. And if you promise that you develop in one project 2 drugs that work in patients, you need to calculate back how much tests you need to do in the laboratory to get that success rate. It's not easy. So think about that on the metrics. And that's not only the tangible assets like tools and materials and students trained, but also the intangible things. The lessons learned, the know-how, the failures that you've encountered, so you know this direction of research is not good, but you choose a different direction. The kind of ideas for new projects that can come out. The new partners that you have now in your network. All of those are value elements coming out of the project. And not all of them are in quantitative terms, tangible terms. And of course the recognition of your group internationally, the visibility, the local outreach. If the local communities here all of a sudden now regard UTech as really a knowledge center where they can come with their problems. I'm exaggerating perhaps, but use it as an idea to write your impact chapter and your deliverables list. And don't forget the publications, the dissemination. As I said before, it's more than just publishing and going to scientific conferences. But think of the other stakeholders that could benefit from your knowledge, and then develop dissemination material that is not technical. Again, if you work in the healthcare sector and you work on a new therapy, it could be useful to have information for patients on your website that is not technical, but addressing their concerns about their disease in a non-technical way. And it may be useful to develop training material for nurses how to deal with the patients in that context. That's not a scientific output, but it's a clear output of the project. And that helps with the success of changing the environment. So think about dissemination. What do you want to tell to who, and when, and how? What is the best means to reach out? If you reach out to patients, you may need a website, but you may need also local community clinical centers telling the patients indirectly. So not all the dissemination is by you. You give the material to other people who can then disseminate for you.
Right. The last bullet point you have on this slide.
Yes.
Maybe it's more a comment and a question. I don't know if it is inherent to Jamaica, but I know one of the largest challenges we have is intellectual property.
I have 10 slides on intellectual property. I'll address some of these, and if your question is not responded, please come back. So, I do have a few slides, especially about that. I'll skip that one because that is really about for those who are setting up startup companies as a result of projects and need business support services to help companies to go through an incubation phase. If you have questions about that, yeah. Well, small thing, and there are a few slides here for you to read, but just a small thing to warn. If you're working on projects that have an ethical issue, and I'll list a few instances where that is the case, be sure that you're clear enough to explain how you deal with the ethics. Because you will not get a score for ethics by the evaluators. But if the evaluators read your proposal and they see an ethical issue that is not addressed, that is not clear, they will send it to an ethical review committee and they may kill your proposal. No matter whether you have good scores and all the other stuff. So there's no page limit there. Be clear and be complete and address the issues really seriously because ethical issues can kill. Now, what are the ethical issues? There are a few here. Animal research, stem cell research, clinical research, those are the obvious ones. One that is obvious as well is dealing with patient data, privacy data, information databases. If you collect information in a database, you need to describe how do you protect the identity of the people there, the privacy of the data, and what do you do with the result of the database after your project? Who has access to those databases? How do you make the database secure so that not a hacker from outside can immediately copy all the information and use it in an unethical way? So it's authorization, it's security, it's access. And as an introduction to IPR, ownership. Who owns the data? Do you? Or does the patient or the people who gave the data own the data and you only use them? Do you have the authorization to use the data for commercial purposes, for example? It's a very hot issue, especially now with the American NSA tapping into all kinds of databases and databases that are private, commercial. It's an issue that is becoming now in Europe an extremely hot issue.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
In the proposal, in case you indicate that your proposal will be subject to the ethical approval, because there's always an ethical committee approval, will that be sufficient? In addition to saying...
No, it will not be sufficient. You need to indicate, first of all, where you got the ethical approval. If you work internationally, you're subject to the Jamaican local, but also the international both. And sometimes there are conflicting rules. So you need to address exactly how you will present to both the boards and how you will deal with the conflicts. It's not so easy. Fortunately, there are guidelines there. So,
Colleagues, I could just pause and recognize the presence of Professor Dustin Oliver, Vice President for Research Graduate Studies and Entrepreneurship and currently acting Deputy President of the University. He wants to bring greetings. Could not have you here without his presence, so he wants to address the board.
Thank you very much. Firstly, let me just welcome Frank. You know that we've had a project which was called the RIMI 4 project, where we had a number of universities collaborating with for research management. And we had our last meeting in South Africa last week, and we're finalizing, we're in the last lap, as it were, finalizing the project, which ends on the 4th of November, officially. Part of that project was in fact training, and Frank has been with us before on a training seminar, and this is his final leg, as it were, for the project in total, I think, isn't it? So he has his final leg. So it's been all over the various universities that are part of the project, giving training. I want to particularly welcome you also to this seminar. I think it's a very important seminar, and in particular, given the fact that there's another call coming out of the EU for research grants. I think it's opportune for us to position ourselves. What is it? It's 70 billion euros in terms of the grants that on the horizon 2020. So with this seminar, clearly we hope that you all, as research managers, will position yourself in a way that we can really take advantage of writing these research proposals and be able to win them, to be winners of them. I will tell you that these grants are extraordinarily competitive. In the existence of this university, in the institution, over 50 odd years, we have only once had the leader of a project proposal, winning project proposal, only once, and that's just recent. This particular project, we were partners with this project. There were 9 institutions, with Sarima being the lead partner. The project that we won, and I think Dr. Ivy most probably will talk a little bit about that, and to using nitrogen as a cooking gas and to do the research in that area. And we're collaborating with a number of high-level universities who are partnering with us because we are the leaders. And one of the partnering universities is in fact Brunel, my own alma mater. Is there another university partnering with us? And UWI is partnering with us. We are the leaders. So it's the first step. So we're hoping that as we position ourselves at the end of this seminar, as we position ourselves, you will look at collaborating with us, yeah? Perhaps writing joint proposals and so on, so we can continue having apprenticed ourselves. And I use the word apprentice in the sense that, I'm the chair of the apprenticeship board. And so this whole business of learning gradually until you get through your apprenticeship is something that I'm quite okay with. So this hopefully is part of the training period, and hope that we can benefit from the seminar. Once again, I welcome you all and trust that you will have a wonderful experience by doing this particular seminar. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for your indulgence.
It's good. It's been a pleasure to work together with you there in the project, and really looking forward to we can develop further projects in the future. It's been a really good experience to work together. Coming back to the ethics here, here are some of the links of information and background documentation you can find. And again, the partition portal and the Cordis portal, as I mentioned earlier, have a whole range of documents and ethical experts that you can contact in Europe if you have questions. So it's not that you have to write these texts completely in isolation. There's expertise there that can help you to address issues and review your text before you submit to see whether it's complete enough. And we have contact with several of these ethical board members, and they do this on a free basis. They send them an email, they judge it, they look through it and say, yeah, it looks okay, but this area is missing. So it's a very open attitude in that way, because they really want you to succeed, but not to make critical mistakes. That's the approach here. What I said about the privacy and the data, the databases is becoming more and more new, especially, and I forgot to mention now, in projects where you have collections of data or materials that are integrated and pulled together in a project. Especially there you need to think about who owns the data, how are the information shared, who has access to the data, and how secure. So please keep it in mind, because nowadays with the modern information technologies, there are so many projects where this becomes an issue. It used to be just in a really rare ICT corner, but now this is mainstream in many projects. All the way coming from clinical to geographical data to big public health data to social and poverty data. In any of the sectors, this becomes an issue. The next couple of slides I'll skip a bit because they're discussed that already here. But there's just one thing I would like to show you. If you're in a position of managing projects, please realize that there are only these 5 you can manage. Well, people. But should not underestimate. Most of it relies about people management. But the scope of the project, you can sort of manage during the project. You can make the project more ambitious or less ambitious if you have the time, and if you have sufficient funding and cost. So these 3 are linked to each other. The 4th one is risks. As I said about ethics, that's a risk. It's an external risk. But you have also internal risk, because this is about research and science and innovation projects. You don't really know whether it will work the way you have foreseen. That's why it's science, why it's research. So you venture into unknown territory, and there will be risks that you cannot foresee upfront. So that may mean that you have delays. That may mean that you have cost overruns, or it may mean that you need to limit your scope or change your scope in a different direction. If the technology, for example, doesn't work for the market you have foreseen, or for the users, but you may use that technology in a completely different field, you change the scope of the project. Now, if that happens, if any of those drastic changes happen, first of all, you need to manage it together. Secondly, manage it with the objective to make the maximum value out of it. So it's not just being too conservative. And sometimes you need to take this to venture into something to make the project still a success. And thirdly, ask permission for the changes to the coordinator and to the funding agency. Because if you make changes on your own, and then at the reporting time, the funding agency, that's not what we promised. We are not paying for this. You don't get your money. So ask upfront permission whether you can make changes like that, and explain why. So it's a small thing, but it can make a big difference in success. So it's constantly balancing these things. It's like mixing a wonderful pot of food in the kitchen. You can do it in multiple ways, and sometimes it tastes very good, and sometimes it's a disaster. It's up to you. Managing is a bit like cooking. Not just following a recipe is not enough. Then, yeah, still works. As I said before, managing people, but yes, I put that central there, because most of the problems relate about communication, relate about people. People not talking about cost overruns. People about not talking about what they deliver. Promising things and not delivering things. Or doing something completely different. Right? So managing people is the critical glue between people in a project. And the most important thing to manage people is here having a common strategy. If you have a partnership where everybody does his own thing, and only once a year they come together, there's not a common strategy, and you will see problems. But right from the start, if everybody knows why they're working together and what they want to achieve together, like building this house, then you have a consortium that works efficiently. So it's about leadership too, not just about bean counting in your reports. It's about leadership. We go this direction instead of everybody is up there. And quite often you see in the larger projects that you split these 2 tasks. You have the project manager who deals with the reporting and the administration and the bean counting and the chasing of people for reform. And you have the scientific leaders who say, this is the way we go. This is how we and why we do this together. And the scientific leader, they usually hate the reports. They hate the bean counting. And you need both. So divide the task and don't try to put in too many management layers there. Some project management people, experts, they like to set up all kinds of schemes, and then they forget that the real work has to be be done by the core scientists. So that leads me to this slide, and I think also we can discuss this in much more detail later, but there are different problems in project management that can arise. Some of them are related to personal characteristics of people. One person who is lazy, who doesn't perform, and he hates the rest, but he gets his money, so he sits in the meeting. Or there are cultural problems. People who are not used to planning. Germans and Swiss people are very good at planning, and they become extremely nervous if they work together with Brazilians who have no plan. They just do something. The next day they do something different, and they never come on time. So cultural differences between international partners can be quite difficult. And last but not least, the problems related to capacity of the organization. If the research support structures are not there, if there's not a patent attorney in the university, how do you negotiate the grant? It can be difficult. So with that, I'll go to the IPR. Let's keep this one. When you work with university and industry together, they have different interests. A university should not commercialize products, and a company is usually not interested in basic research. So they have different streams. But there's an overlapping area in which you can work together. Just like a marriage. And I'm going for not the same either, but you still can have a marriage. Right? So as long as it's clear how you collaborate together and who does what, and where you leave each other a certain level of freedom, that is the basis for a good partnership. If you reach that agreement, you can detail out the levels of the finances and IPR. If you don't have that level of agreement and trust, it's very hard to negotiate. So I never start with a lawyer to do the negotiation. I first talk about what do we want to achieve together, and what is important for me to keep freedom and flexibility, and what is we can perform together. If that is clear on a sheet of paper, then we get the lawyer and translate it into a legal contract. It's in that order. Otherwise, they come up with a legal contract and see, these are the terms, just fill in the blank fields. It doesn't work that way. But this happens all the time. In these contracts, also the contract with the funding agency, you will see these kind of issues coming up. And it's quite complicated legal stuff. So what I did is try to avoid this situation, help you with a simple scheme so that you're prepared and avoid a conflict. So you can discuss with your partners in the negotiations, not on these terms, like this is the terms, but on the terms of what do we want to achieve together in a positive way, and what is it that is dear to us and you cannot touch it. If you make that clear upfront and transparent, then it's much easier. And this is the slide I want to develop on in a minute. It really is a summary of how you negotiate a contract in a non-legal way. In consortia, in partnerships, it's like you share something, you bring something to the table. Almost like the Americans, what they call a potluck dinner. You have a whole family, everybody brings some vegetables, some fish, some water, some spices, some wine. Together you form a party, everybody enjoys the full meal. A partnership is like that. So one brings tools, another one brings knowledge, and the third one brings a test. The fifth one brings the user committee together. And together you bring background knowledge that is owned by the different parties. So each of these blue circles there is the materials and the knowledge you own and that you are willing to share with the partners. That is called an included or positive list. In many of the contracts, you describe all our expertise and all our materials and information in our laboratory we share with the partners. That's a very open sharing. But if your company has, or your institute has a contract with a company, and the company says, no, but in this project you have developed something that is only for us, exclusive. You need to disclose that certain elements and certain stuff is not available for other partners in an open way. So you share in a controlled manner. If you make that very clear, what is confidential information, what is not confidential information, which information is open, public, and which materials can be openly shared for whatever, and which materials are very valuable, and you want to share them only under certain conditions. For example, here we bring in a certain material into the partnership. The partners can do research on it. They cannot make money with it because you own it. If they want to make money with it, they need access rights for commercial use. They need to ask you permission. You give a license agreement, and if you make a lot of money, they share part of the profit with you. That's the big revenue sharing part. Within the project, that is the red circle, you have the existing knowledge that is brought together, that's background knowledge. And then you start working in your project, you develop new knowledge. You develop a new drug, you test it in animals, you test it in look, it looks like it's safe. That means that all of a sudden it becomes a drug candidate. That's much more valuable. That is foreground knowledge. So, for example, if you have these drug candidates and you've tested these in animals and now you're ready to start using these in patients, in clinical studies, that means that you need access rights after the project to do your clinical studies in patients. Now, if material was actually constructed in another university, you may not have your drug candidate material. So you need to be clear, after the project, you still have access to the material to do further research. If you don't agree then, you don't have access. So these are the elements that need to be described in the contract. And now, of course, if the whole group has developed foreground knowledge, a new drug candidate, a new product, a new machine, the process, and they cannot bring it to the market themselves, they can license this to a third party. A third party then makes money with it, or not, if it's non-commercial use. And they acknowledge that you are the owner, and they can have the authorization to do it. So this is the description help you to navigate. If you identify spots that are painful, difficult, you can discuss in a transparent way in preparation for going to the lawyers to make a tailored contract. Most contracts should not be standard, but tailored, yes.
I'm looking at the access rights for commercial use, all right?
Yes.
Revenue sharing should be included. Assuming you had partnered with somebody and over time you realize that there is this commercial use within the partnership and there is no revenue sharing, what do you do?
Well, there are two ways of dealing with that. One, the first access rights for commercial use, you can choose between non-exclusive or exclusive access. Exclusive access is you give all the rights to one company and nobody else can make money with the material. That means that all the money and revenue will be generated by that one company. If they cannot sell that project all over the world, they will not generate a lot of revenue for you. So if you're licensing to a local company and selling it only in Jamaica, you're missing out on the opportunities in the rest of the world. It's more logical then to give a non-exclusive license or an exclusive license for their particular market, only in Jamaica, and give licenses for other markets to other parties. And that way you benefit in different ways. Now there's a possibility that the company then goes bankrupt and doesn't use, then you end up with nothing. So good practice is to have a little clause. If the company fails to use commercially, it will return to you. And many people forget that. And sometimes they settle the term. And sometimes the company doesn't go bankrupt, but they simply are not capable of developing the product further and bringing it to the market. Then it should return to you in a reasonable time, 5, 6 years, 8 years, to be negotiated, so that you can use it in different ways and license it to others for commercial use. Well, these are a few tips, but there are many, many, many other possibilities too. But this is what usually happens.
Chief Brown, if ever my colleague mentioned that you are in a partnership and then over time you realize that there is IP, I think that's kind of like what I heard. And we
And there's another slide here about the relationship, what IP? Because everybody thinks immediately of patents, but that's only one high-end way of protecting your intellectual property. But if you have talked about your discoveries on conferences, you cannot protect by patent anymore. It's public domain, it's public, it's new, it's known. So then you have other measures of protecting your intellectual property without going through a patent. So yes, absolutely, you need to be clear up front what can be shared, what should be kept confidential, and if you're able to protect it through a patent or not, what's the best means, and their patent attorneys as specialists can guide you in the choices. You have to come up with the initiative and ask these things. We can help you as well, because this is what we do in everyday life. Partnerships between academia and industry to look at contracts, look at situations, what can you protect and how can you benefit. I skip these in terms of time. Just want to show you the two last slides there. This one is an important one. We touched on confidentiality issues. Especially if you work with students and temporary visitors and staff, they may have access to information that actually should be kept inside the laboratory, kept confidential. Either because in the future you may want to patent, or because you're working with an industry partner who has a good interest to keep it secret because it's their market. Now, they will be mad as hell if the student walks out with this piece of information and starts blogging it on Facebook. This is just recipe for failure. Or more subtle, if there's a visiting scientist and works into your library and they get access to information on the servers that's actually confidential, they copy everything and they use it for their own paper without mentioning you. So it's not only in industry setting, but it's also between academics. This happens more often than you think. Material transfer issue, very simple thing to do, but often ignored. You develop something, if you give somebody else access to it, write a small one page, I own this material, I allow you to use it for research or commercial purposes, I transfer the material to you, but I still own it. That claim on the ownership is important, because otherwise you can never negotiate any returns later. So the material transfer issue is a very simple agreement, nothing to be scared of, but should be considered in all these ways.
Question.
Next to the confidentiality agreements. Yes.
Like you have a British journal, and for your publication,
Yes.
you had a publication in a journal, and they always require that they have the exclusive rights, all right? Now, with the time of the open access, and somebody is asking that you could transfer the material to them, can that still be done?
Those are two
After
different
many
things.
years,
No. Open access is rather they have access to the information.
so they can disseminate it,
And-
you can
and
give
that
it
is-
a wider audience.
And that's related to copyrights and authorship. But that doesn't mean that they have access to the materials. If you develop a new material and you publish on that, the material is sitting in your institute, unless it's an information database that is open to the public. But otherwise, materials you develop in your laboratories, for example, they sit in your institute. You own those materials.
Sure.
If you want to give them away to somebody for further research, let them sign an MTA so that they don't walk away with it and they publish on their own. And when you start complaining, you say, I don't know, you have never signed anything. So it's a way to protect yourself.
What I mean, if you want a wider visibility to your information, to your publication,
Yes.
and some others over time have said, well, we have the exclusive right because you're publishing in British Journal of Medicine.
Mhm.
So with this time of internet,
Yeah.
wider visibility, could you still give that information that you had previously published to give it to others for free access?
I don't know whether I'm an expert on that field.
Okay.
Uh,
That's all right.
I may say nonsense here, but open access is heavily stimulated by the European Union, and they really encourage you, if it's funded by the European Union, that you publish everything in open access. So the cost, if that's a concern, the cost is covered by the project. That's not the issue. The issue I wanted to address here is slightly different. It's not authorship or whether it's new or not, whether it has been published or not, but rather whether you publish confidential information in an open access publication. If you publish in a non-access journal publication, so at that level it doesn't matter. If you want to keep something confidential, you don't publish. But we can discuss it over lunch if you like. Yeah, the last thing is the lab records, which is may not be related to patents and all that, but yes, with the traceability of things. If you discover something or you enter something into an information database and you don't record when and who has access and authorization to change those records, then there's no reliability on quality and control. In the future, if a partner wants to come back and get the same information or the same material from you in a partnership to compare, then you may have a problem to repeat what you have done in the past. And this is relevant because there's a certain turnover of scientists in labs. Young scientists, they leave, and if you don't record what you're doing, you may not be able to replicate if the original expert has left. So in terms of knowledge management, but also in terms of long partnerships over years, this is a critical issue. I think those are the most important ones. Fortunately, again, for IPR, there's a help desk to help you out with questions and answers. And if you don't find the answers there, of course you can contact us. There's only one project I wanted to highlight. There are 3 project examples in this. Yes, it's the EU help desk for IPR issues. And we have this new Fit for Health project in which they are a partner with us. So I have direct access to them. So if you don't find the information on the website, you can also ask us and we can follow up.
And they also suggest too that the WIPO, or the office, their website is also a very useful resource as well.
WIPO, they have a lot of training in these methods as well. And of course the European Patent Office and the US Patent Office, they have links to search their patent databases and all that. So it's really worth to have a look at these websites as part of your preparation for writing proposals. Because there's a wealth of information that you may not be aware of that can be found in these websites. I'd like to close with this one project because it refers back to the very first thing I said this morning about the Horizon 2020 programs. How do you link your expertise to a global problem or a big issue in the market or a society challenge? How do you do that? And how do you structure it in IDs? I give you a lot of tips and hints and methodology there, I hope, but let's see how that's implemented in one project. And just as an example, this is a project where in the biofuels, where we are involved to build a platform, a global platform, that can address many different markets across the world with the same technologies and the same knowledge in partnership. And since we are addressing global sustainability issue of energy, access to energy, and reliability of access to energy and prices, biofuels are just one solution. Other renewable energies and other solutions, fraction shale gas is another solution, but this is at least one of the solutions we prepared. The platform is driven by a group of universities and research institutes, not only in Europe, but also in Mexico, South Africa, and India. They work together. They're funded through different projects. So the platform, as such, is the collaborative framework, but funding is through different individual research projects. These projects are linked to the platform so that we can make optimal use of all the funding resources. There are a number of SMEs involved, my company too, and a big industry in India. It's the Indian oil company. It's a really large industry, and they fund part of this. Governments are involved. In this case, the governments of industry and energy, ministries of energy and science and technology in India, and several individual governments in Europe. And we try to involve the European Commission with the H2020 program in next year. So we're preparing ourselves to get ready for a large project next year. The problem is that biofuel from food like corn and sugar is not sustainable, and they're competing with food in the agriculture. So we need to find fuel sources, plants that can be turned into fuel, in this case biodiesel, that do not compete with the food and the agriculture. So that's the society pain, if you like. Now, how to do that? In India, the example we are working with to work this out in practice is on the autochthon species. These are plants with big nuts, and the nuts can be squeezed out to oil, and the oil can be converted into biodiesel. They even grow here. It's a general plant that grows in the subtropical, tropical areas. The problem is that worldwide there are only 4 or 5 species that are growing everywhere. And most of those are toxic, and they're very hard to cultivate, very hard to harvest, and the oil content varies from one year to another. So it's not a good crop. It's not very easy to manage, and not very predictable. Because it's toxic, it cannot be used for food or other purposes, and it can be quite dangerous to process. The solution we propose is, let's have a look at the biodiversity in Mexico and Central America. There are many, many, many species that could become a crop in the future if we select them on the right properties and not manage them into an actual crop species. Now, this is not just a laboratory activity. You need a lot of different disciplines working together. So, pilot projects on starting on the tests have established a market need, and the oil can actually be used in the market. That's not a problem. But the problem is on the input side. Which species do we use? How do we cultivate it? And what kind of products do we use? How? So we need to think about a feed competition about different soils. Where do you plant plants? Do you plant them high up in the mountains, on slopes, on dry areas? Water management, the economic viability of the whole thing, and the interest of the farmers, of course. And the other thing is looking across the whole value chain, what I said earlier this morning. Where's the business case? Are the farmers really interested in this? Or is this rather something for large plantation owners? Then you have a different business case. We did a multi-stakeholder workshop in India last year, and another one earlier this year in India, looking at and discussing with the different stakeholders, and what came out is probably 2 business cases. Plants that are fit for very large plantations need different characteristics than plants that can be used in small crop farms, in small communities. And the business case, the value elements are completely different. So let's select plants that are fit for each business case in a different way. And then do the proper science and technology together in the lab, the agricultural principles, the harvesting principles, the pilot fields, and all that. Look at the hardcore functional genomics that we needed to select these plants. And then look at the industrialization. Look at how can we scale up to the level where a plantation becomes economically viable. How do we avoid that all these plants become vulnerable for diseases? That's a big risk in a large plantation. How do you harvest mechanically in a big plantation? That's a very different issue than if you give smallholder farmers in a small community here a couple of plants and they use it for their own use. They can use manual harvesting. So you select different plants based on where they are needed. And then you look at industrialization. Do you make oil? Then you convert the oil into biodiesel in a central big farm, a big plant, or do you do it in a small scale close to the farmers? Completely different business case, so you may need a different process. And that's the most important thing. You need regulatory issues on safety, on land use, on community formation, all the social aspects on, do we use this as a crop to earn money, or as a crop to generate local energy, or as a crop to industrialize and create a lot of jobs? Those social aspects need to be taken into account of the business model. And that determines whether you're economically viable. And the value coming out of the whole platform is not just one plant, but the different business models, different applications for different countries. And we reuse the same knowledge pool of experts to address distribution issues, economic issues, waste streams, social values, maybe even community building. There comes the social elements in there. If there's an idea there coming from Latin America, if you have small crop farmers who can actually grow this crop on lands that are now not used by anything else, they can generate some earned income on land that are now wastelands. And you help the most poor farmers that way. If you do that in a community, your value is not biodiesel for airplanes, but the value is community building and fighting poverty. So there's so many ways that you can create value if you approach it in an integrated way. Talking about integration, it's a bit like this. That's the last slide. Research management is by bringing all these different instruments and players together and that ambition together and make the concept. It's not a competition, no, it's cooperation and listening to each other, to a joint cause. So, with that, 10 minutes behind time, but the floor is open for questions. Yes. Again.
Questions? Comments? Insights?
I saw one of your slides where you had the partnership between the universities and the private sector and the intersection there, commercialization. I noticed that you put profits on the side of the private sector, but then put profits on the side of the university. You know, so I think
that's a good comment. It can definitely be also on the side of the university. And the last, this slide demonstrates that it's not only about profits in terms of money, but the biggest value may be elsewhere, in socio-economic terms. And again, it's up to you to describe in your proposal where the value would be for society. And it can be in quite unexpected cases. Like the example I gave of Latin America with community building was not my idea. But we talked to NGOs and they came up with the idea of, we have seen this working with other crops in northern Brazil. Could we do this with Jamaica as well? And then one of the other scientists said, well, never thought about that. Let's do a research project. So a platform like this can also be a breeding ground for further research projects, really fundamental research, or bringing hardcore science with social sciences together. I think that is a bit the philosophy of Horizon 2020 and the direction we all want to go.
Next slide, if you did elaborate that shows
quite a lot of things.
The particular one I'm referring to is the one where a university or an academic institution wanted to spin out a company to commercialize research results. And I thought that might be useful for us to at least take a look at this. Especially since we have an incubator here, we're actually in the incubator of the university.
Since the scope of the presentation was more on Horizon 2020, I did not want to spend too much time on this, but this is a model that is being used in many countries in many different forms. This is not a standard model, there are many different forms. But the basic principle is more or less this. You have different institutes in a university, or even different universities collaborate with a joint incubator. And the incubator helps to form the business plan, to ask all the questions that we've been discussing today about the business case, the market, the finance, the capacity to work together. They help to position the company so that they have a maximum success of growing. And then they help with attracting public funding to actually do the first start of the development go as far as they can to the proof of concept. Usually public funding doesn't pay for market introduction, but they do pay for public proof of concept. The prototype show that it works in the user group. And then if you've done that, you can start talking with business angels and investors and private corporations to address private money. They will not be interested in only research, but if you have a proof of concept and a prototype that seems to work, then they will be ready to invest the second phase. And then the task of the incubator is to pull all these experts around the companies. That's what we do as a virtual incubator, if you like. Bring partners around the company so that they can outsource as much as they can and keep control of what they want to do in the strategy in-house. Instead of just building a building and building big labs and all that, without a strategy, without a market, and without products on the market for making revenue, that's highly risky. But if an incubator can help a company using existing resources and expertise from elsewhere to make that proof of concept and get the first product on the market, then the company can start earning the first revenue. They become attractive for further investors. Now they can go out of the incubator and have their own life and build their own buildings, etc. So it's really incubating means making a company viable. And that's teamwork. It's seldom that one scientist starts a company and does everything, including quality control, manufacturing, marketing, like legal, finance. You go crazy. So you need help of people around you to do this. I've been on the board of 5 startup companies now, partially as investor, and I tell you, in startup companies, you have to do everything. Down to making the coffee and doing the copies on the copy machine. You do everything. But if you then start growing and you can attract more people around you and you have the first product sold to your first customer, well, that's exciting. That's why you do it. Sorry, there was another question.
Well, maybe I was looking for a silver bullet. In your last frame, you have the orchestra, collaboration, working, making good music. At the beginning of your presentation, all of this revolves around collaboration. My own experience, the work that we're doing, is that there's a huge barrier to that collaboration, which is the trust.
Sorry?
Trust.
Yes.
I have the idea.
No, absolutely. Without trust, nothing else moves.
And you may say to the person, hey, we'll respect your patent rights.
Sure, they're there.
So,
First transparency, then respect, and then trust. Yes.
but even when you have that meeting, the one experience here in Jamaica is that, one, I don't have the fees of being no lawyers like myself. Two, why should I work with you?
Yeah. You hear that everywhere. That's not typical for Jamaica. You hear this everywhere. It's a certain hurdle to overcome. Absolutely. Yeah. We were discussing this briefly yesterday in the car. The first one to stick his neck out and do an international collaboration will receive a lot of criticism. If it works, everybody wants to be part of that.
That's true.
Yeah. But how come? He works together with this English university and they got €2 million on the account. Why don't I get 2 million? Well, maybe because you didn't do the partnership. But people are always, they want to participate in a success after the success is demonstrated. But the ones who create success usually have taken a risk. People don't want to take risks. Unfortunately, scientists are used to this. They take risks in their experiments. Entrepreneurs are used to this. But lawyers taking risks? Not really. So yeah, it depends. And that depends also what type of language you use when you start a partnership in the first context. If you're presenting yourself as the technical experts who can only think in technical terms, not able to cross that barrier in other words, not be able to explain what you know and what you can do in non-technical terms, then it may become difficult. So communication, in this case research communication, to non-researchers or other researchers in other disciplines, or even a bit of politicians. This is skill. And again, the research management office may help you there because they have contact with so many other projects, so many other institutes, and also institutes outside the university. They may have a way of presenting your project in a different way, so you don't have to worry about it. It's not dividing tasks. You see most of the larger universities in Europe do that. They have in the research management support office, they have communication specialists. They translate the scientific concepts into something that even a politician can understand. And they help with this, the text on the website, they help with preparing presentations for conferences, and they help with the first contact with industry before you start negotiating, just introductions. They help with informal gatherings where there's an invited speaker and they invite industry as well. So in an informal way, you meet over a glass of beer. Things like that help enormously.
How does it know we're not alone?
Yeah. To be honest, most of the contacts we have with other industries or people were informal contacts first. It's rare that you just pick up the phone and have a cold call, dropping out the blue sky from, I've seen your work, would you like to cooperate? And the other guy said, I don't know you, why? As you said. So an informal introduction, building trust by sharing information without knowing whether they accept it, helps. Or drinking a beer together. Quite often the conferences are a fantastic place to find partners, really. So that's one of the things that we discussed in the Sarina conferences as well. Have sufficient travel budget from the university to be able to go out, especially here in Jamaica, that is incredibly important, of course, to be able to travel. People will remember your face, and you see the business card, they're vice president, such and so, but they remember your face. Yeah.
You're right in what you said earlier also, that the one that will take that leap of faith, take the risk, as long as it's a success.
Yeah. And having a common strategy helps enormously. If you demonstrate that you're not just working on your little corner, but you're contributing on the big vision, and that you need help, then people are much more willing to partner with you because they can offer something. And jointly you can have a build success. But if you're asking them without returning something back, then that's more difficult. Real humans. We want some kind of trade. I give you material, you give me recognition. I share with you my results, but I need to learn something from you. That's normal. That's how it starts.
Okay,
Other thoughts?
any other thoughts, questions, comments? If not,
Question or comments. Now that we have come out here, it is our expectation that we are supposed to be partnering together. So how do we know who works in where and which area? So where is that common ground where somebody can readily partner with somebody within this seminar or after this seminar?
Oh, that's for you, I guess.
well, to begin with, Frank ended on the note of, well, there are different ways of answering the question. He mentioned the conferences, and let's call this a conference. Exchange your contact information, your business cards, and so forth. And probably some of you are aware of this technique, but those who are not, I'll just share it. It has been suggested to me that whenever somebody gives you a business card, you scribble on the back where and when you have met them and in what context.
Yeah.
So when you pick up at the card and look at it and you want to aside, you know when and where you are the person and so forth. So there's that. The other, and that's a good question you have asked in terms of how do we even engagement here are we are going forward and different activities and so forth. The membership list and the email that will be sent out to everybody. And we'll send the attendance listing as well, and the contact information for whoever attended will be shared with all persons who attended here today as well and so forth. And so that's how we kind of build the network within the association of how we get to know persons face-to-face in sessions like these, and also we tend to use email a lot for communication, and I would suggest that you follow suit as well in terms of using that means. The other question I would put to Frank is whether his company, what possible role he sees RIMS playing with yourselves if you were to say make direct contact with them or so forth.
No, we briefly discussed that yesterday. There's one other comment I would like to place first before answering.
Yes.
The first step that you could do, except for searching out yourself for partners, is involve your research management office. Let them help you search. Let them become visible. If the research management office helped you to highlight your project ID or your capacity, unique expertise you have in your lab or your institute, your research group, highlight it on the website of the university or in different fora that the research management office is in contact with, like through the Reading for AC. Now, Paul has contact with all the other readings in Africa, with Zarima, which is a big network of several hundreds of universities and research companies in Southern Africa, and through us in Europe. So, through the research management office, you can tap into these networks, and these are informal contexts that we may be active. Subsequently, if there is a real project ID that merits close attention, discussion, usually it's a good idea to simply send an email to me or anybody else who you think that can help and ask for advice. And we can simply do that. I mean, that's not a problem at all. To look at project IDs, concept notes, or 1 or 2 pages that clearly describe what you do, or just 2, 3, 4 slides perhaps. Describe what you want to do, what you can offer, where you're struggling with your project ID, and where you think the funding could come from, or where not, what you've tried already, how this can connect with other projects. And I'll send it by email and ask for advice. I scan these project IDs on a regular basis all the time, just for free, out of curiosity. If there's something that strikes me and say, wow, this is interesting here, I can contribute, I can help, I'll do it, and I'll take notice and keep contact with you, discuss the further steps. This could result in you asking me to do some consultancy from our company, that's possible. I've been contracted by universities for proposal writing, and they pay a certain sum, and you write the proposal together with them, you give advice. But if it's really interesting proposal that fits our strategy, we can also opt in our company to say, no, we would like to partner with you and take the risk. We write the proposal for free. As you are a partner, we act as a partner next to the coordinator, help with the business development, with the exploitation and all that. We take the risk. If we get funding, we have our own budget in the project. Like we did with the Rimi for AC. We spent a lot of time in writing that project together with the others in Serena. I actually even negotiated the project on behalf of Serena because I'm in Brussels. And the benefit is I got a budget in the project and I got to know all of you here, which is far more important than the budget. So we developed a lot of new training material, which I can use in other training workshops. So for me, this project was a success, and I can reuse some of the material and develop it in new projects. So the networks, the materials, the training, the context, the breeding ground for new projects. That is for me why I took the chance. Okay, I'll be partner. I'm not charge anything, but just take the risk and we submit. And I do that on a regular basis. We do 4, 5, 6 proposals per year, and we get 1 or 2 funded. That's the way it works. Sorry. So it's for me as well, for my company. I don't survive on these projects, but they form a certain base activity that is very important to expand our recognition and activity globally. On top of that, we have business contacts with big corporations who just ask us for consultancy that earn some money. And on top of that, I do some investment in new ideas like the biofuels there that may generate something really important for the future, but that's high risk. So I keep a bit of a mix. That's my company. We are a small company, really small, just a handful of people. They're not even all living in Brussels. One of our most senior experts from the pharma company lives in Dublin. And another junior biotechnology expert, she's living in Mexico. So, in a way, we don't have this big building. We don't have many people behind us. We still can work in a project of 3 to 10 million euros because we partner. And we have a network of 3,500 organizations in which we are in regular contact. So, we can navigate. After 11 years, well, I started as one person. Only through these partnerships I've been able to grow. So also my company is an example of partnerships are the way to get to international recognition and growth.
Question.
So I hope that
One
answers the
question.
question a bit.
There's software available that will allow persons to work collaboratively in different locations. This means you're working on the same project, but you can be in 10 different locations. Are you using any software like that, and will that be available?
I'm not sure whether really...
Like Team Center, for example.
We work with, in the different projects with different partners, yes. In our own company, we don't have too many fixed senior staff.
For example,
if we work on a larger project, I can tap into our network to get these experts to work temporarily under the label GIMS with other partners. And after that assignment, they leave and we do their own thing. So they're not on the payroll.
For the main point, the example you gave of people putting the parts of the plane together and then it didn't fit properly, would never have happened if they were using a software like that. Because all of them would be seeing what is happening as they went along.
Maybe I hear only half of what you're saying.
I'm saying if you're working together collaboratively, then at every stage you will see all the parts are fitting together without waiting to bring the finished pieces together.
Yes, but it's rarely that if you develop elements that they fit the first time, if they're new. So quite often you work alongside in parallel. You develop the structure, you develop the part that should fit. You learn from each other, you try to redevelop something until it's completed. So many of these projects have parallel streams of activity. It's the trick of working in a company, or in a project together, that you keep everybody in the same direction. Otherwise, everybody would do his own thing, and you would never be able to put them together. And I think that is what my last example with the platform as well. Because we're aiming for a platform that helps to address biofuels in India, in Africa, in Latin America, in who knows where. We bring all this expertise in the same marketplace, if you like. And that is a way to line up everybody in the same direction and to reuse the knowledge in different applications. If we would do that just in one organization, which is the classical way of doing R&D, we would have a very serial, linear approach. You have a laboratory who develops all the parts, you have an assembly lab, you have an institute who develops the machine or program, and then you have a marketing department. That's a very serial process. And one of my first slides this morning said that is an old-fashioned, classical, big industry approach that may not be very useful for these innovative, complex problems. For complex problems, you may need a more flexible platform type network approach. And the whole of science is moving into a more networked environment. So I think this old classical model will be limited to very classical settings inside big companies.
So the idea suggests that the software could help you to have a more efficient networking. So you won't have to be together physically, but at every stage it will put things together.
Absolutely. But it goes beyond that. Because even in hardcore science, where you need laboratories, even if you're in different countries, you still work together virtually, even though the activity is done in the different laboratories in physical places.
Okay, colleagues, I interject and ask the discussion continues over lunch. We want to thank Frank for the information that they shared with us, traveled intercontinentally to be here. So we give him a round of applause.
Sorry.
He has business cards here as well, which I'm sure he wants to distribute. Just to tell you in terms of what we have left for the afternoon. We have some evaluation forms in the package. We want to get feedback inform us how we proceed in the future. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and any critique or any issues. And we welcome those so that we can improve going forward. We have also available at the registration desk Cabrima membership forms. We really want to invite you to join with the association and to be part of this ongoing mission of capacity building in research management as we go forward to better do what we do to be more effective. Remember as well the materials that Frank will be presenting in the slides, and so those will be emailed to you. Make sure we have your email or contact information on the already.
I saw that the presentations are rather heavy. I don't know whether there's a problem with some of the email servers to receive. What I can do is split the presentations in smaller parts and then load them on the Dropbox. And if you have the email address, I can give you all access to the Dropbox. Yes. And that way you can download, and I can upload additional material on demand. If you need certain material, I can put it on the Dropbox, everybody has access.
That's better.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll communicate with you a modality of how we will receive them. We'll discuss and agree with Frank how we do it and communicate that to you. And also, I would really appreciate, since you are already away from your office for the day, to stay with us for the rest of the post-lunch session for just a formal AGM. That should be another hour or so. We'll welcome you to join us, those who are not formally part of us yet. Hear what we discuss. I have a treat for you which I'm holding in suspense to display and to distribute at that time. So please, I really welcome you to be there because there's so much exciting things that are happening. I was saying to one of our colleagues over break, where do we go to learn to be research managers? Aware of a training program or a course locally or elsewhere or so forth. But through the association, we have the resources and the means for capacity building in that area, and we have the resources to share and the links and all of those kind of contacts and network and so forth. By virtue of being an association of research and innovation management, we have tapped into the global research management network, and that has helped us tremendously, both individually speaking for myself and as an institution in terms of the difference we have seen. So I'm really inviting you to join us. And then now, lunch is served. So we're running a little bit behind the time, so we want to be as efficient as possible with the lunch arrangement, and then we reconvene for just about another hour. So, and Frank will have another input there in terms of how might we develop training in research management and help us with his experience in Africa in terms of some of the approaches that he has taken. And remember, he was president of the European Research and Innovation Management Association. In our jargon, we call those the REMAs, the Research and Innovation Management Association, the REMAs. So he has much experience dealing with the REMAs previously as well as in this project and so forth. So as we build capacity and learn and network, it's an opportunity here this afternoon as well. And I also want to thank you very much for coming here for this first part of the proceedings. And I'm pleased that the fact that you responded so positively to the invitation, and I hope that this is the beginning of good things to come in terms of the turnout that we see here. As we build network locally among ourselves as partner institutions, then we, as we say in Jamaica, we dance the yard, then we can go and dance abroad.